All right, I'm gonna get this rolling. Oh, you already got your little shot glass sippy cup.
You apparently made sure that I have some of the fresh foamy stuff.
So check this out. This is my first coffee now in what?
A couple weeks at least.
2 weeks for sure, 2.5 weeks. I'll have to look up the date. So I was on a coffee hiatus for a little while.
Yeah.
Worked out really good. Felt really strong mountain biking. And so,
There you go. A little sweeter than usual.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
It is. I don't know why that is. I didn't use a full scoop of sugar. Huh. Well,
It's still really good.
this is the J&T Marital Arts podcast, and here we are practicing marital art number 2 and number 5, staying active, communication, and staying active. Oh, here's the ingredients. I have measured everything out. So it is a little bit sweet. That's kind of strange. I'm wondering.
Do you think did you use a different type of coffee?
No, it was the same stuff we had a couple weeks ago. So
what was your, what were you testing when you were going off coffee for a while?
just going off it for a while. I'm going to go through the ingredients right now. So it is a little sweet, which is odd because I have the same scooper that I use, and it was down about a 1/4 inch from the top, and so it was only 30 grams of sugar in weight, and that's raw cane sugar, the actual raw brand cane sugar.
For about a liter of coffee.
Oh yeah, it's more than a liter. Well, we'll get I think it's 32 ounces. That's a liter, right? Yeah. Okay, so 30 grams of coffee, 30 grams of sugar, 30 grams, and I weighed it all in grams. So 30 grams of brain octane and 78 grams of butter. Now it might be there was a little more butter in this one, which can make it a little sweeter. But that's
Bring out the sweetness more.
It's a good way to come back. Have it a little sweeter.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, I find that in these recipes, the grams are easier to measure in.
Well, I might as well measure them all in grams and not be like, oh, this is in ounces, this is in grams, this is...
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah, I think even the brain octane, or the brain, what is it? The bulletproof coffee, they do, in a number of their recipes, they'll do in metric as well. And I know some people complain when things are in metric, but, well, John, maybe you could share with us that the standard or English measurements actually have a numerological or vibrational meaning, don't they?
In what way? What am I sharing?
I don't know. Well, you said before, okay, I think like when you're a math person and you like numbers and stuff, you still may not like doing standard measurement, because it's all goofy, it's 8 of this and that and 64 and that and 128 per gallon, just I'm obviously not being spot on. Okay, so 12,
I didn't know where we were
12
talking
inches
about
in a
this,
foot, how many, 5,280 feet in a mile, 164 ounces in a gallon, that kind of, pretty sure that's what it is. And so the numbers are all different as opposed to metric that are all tens, right? Tens, hundreds, thousands. And so it's very easy to quantify in that, figure out. But you've said before, so you work with measurement all day, every day.
Yep.
And you've, so not only that, but you like studying numerology and the the origins of things, let's
Well,
say.
we can get into it later. That was a really odd way to start this morning because I'm not in a headspace for numbers right now.
Oh, you're just into coffee. Okay.
Well, yeah. Well, this is my first time back on coffee in 2.5 weeks. And so I'm trying to cope with what you're saying. That's marital art number 5. I'm going to read through the marital arts. So we have 10 marital arts that we have kind of nailed down and practice in our relationship. And the first one is patience. Number 2 is communication. Number 3 is cooperation. Number 4 is make love. Number 5 is coping. Number 6 is stay active. Number 7 is plan. Number 8 is truth. Number 9 is humor. And number 10 is the rule of 11. So we should probably say that, let that out each time, and we should start expounding on those a little bit more. We've done most of them in the past. We haven't covered the rule of 11 or make love.
Well, I was going to say, since you aren't into numbers this morning, can you...
Oh, that's so funny. I was so tired last night, and that's probably why. I was up until, 1:30, 2 o'clock, just loading the machine, and then I decided to shut everything down at 2-ish, I think. So, a little off my numbers game this morning. My brain is reviving what you were saying. I think there's much better reference throughout history to the number system we use in America and numerologically than metric, and in numerology, I should say. And I don't like metric, so we can discuss probably at another date because
All right, that's fine.
On another imperial date.
So rather than me just come up with another topic that you may not be ready for, or do you want to? Is there something that you were thinking about other than, of course? Okay, so
I'm gonna go pick up my new mountain bike today. That's
very exciting.
That's kind of forefront on my mind.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, and then I have to switch over bars, and I have to put my pedals on it, and I have to switch grips, and I have to do a whole bunch of stuff before I go ride. But I'm really, actually really excited. So I went back up. So I got a specialized. It's an e-bike, and we have specialized e-bikes. I went back up in motor size because I was debating on buying a dirt bike. So I actually even looked at gas dirt bikes, and I'm like, I want a dirt bike, and because we ride mountain bike, and every time we're in the woods, I keep thinking, I want to twist a throttle. And so then I started looking at the it's called a free ride, the KTM free ride, which is an electric motocross bike. And I thought, okay, I get something like that because it's quiet, it's not noisy, right? You just hear the motor whine a little bit, like that. And so I could ride that many places, right? I could ride it around here, and nobody will complain, right? So I can go anywhere. And then I thought, well, then I have to go to mountain bike or a motocross park or a mountain bike park that has motocross trails also. And then I have to go somewhere, and then you won't have one, and then I can't do it with you. And I'm not going to put you on a motorcycle at this point in life, when you've ridden mountain bike and that kind of stuff, but there's no need going faster and having any kind of accidents or anything like that. So I settled on upgrading my mountain bike.
Oh wait, you did tell me the other day though too that you had considered you'd have to buy new gear and
I don't have
any trailer
I don't have any motocross gear. I don't really have a way to haul it. We do have a small trailer, but it's not really set up. I mean, I could use it, but I would want an enclosed trailer, of course, because then I can put a generator, all the gear, everything in there. And just there'd be a lot of expense outside of buying a $10,000 bike. Then there's probably another $3,000 to $4,000 worth of expense on top of that. And then
sounds like at least.
Yeah. Well, I already have generators and things like that, so I'd need to buy a trailer. That'd be like $3,800 and $4,200 right around there, and then gear. So yeah, it'd be another
$10,000.
Nah, it'd be another $7,000 roughly. But then I spend $17,000, and I didn't want to double, my expenditures, because mountain bikes aren't cheap either.
Yeah.
Especially e-bikes. But so we have a lot of fun in the woods, and we have a lot of fun riding. I enjoy that, riding with you and getting out, having fun, So, what do you like about mountain biking?
Well, I do really enjoy being out in nature, and the woods are a really nice place to ride, because even when it's really hot, it's always going to be a little bit cooler in the woods. So that's one thing. It's good exercise. It's something that I can see progress or not,
Mm-hmm.
and it's something to work towards. It's it's a nice summer activity. I wish we could do it more of the year.
Yeah.
And I like doing it with you. Always on the way home we're talking about the trail and how things went, or so it's another thing for us to talk about and relate on.
Or if I crashed.
Yeah.
Like last time we went out.
No, I wasn't with you that time.
I know. We went and rode, and then we came back, and then I said I wanted to go again. You said you'd go for a walk if I wanted to go ride. So I went and rode, and I came through a section that the rhythm was really off, and I was going really fast, and it caught me. I jumped too far on a double, and came down like a foot away from a tree, and my handlebar was about 6 inches in on the tree, and there was not really a great way for me to get out of it, and I hit the tree, kind of my knuckle and my shoulder, and I was already turning away as I went down, and then I kind of slid on my left side nicely. It was just it was a little gravelly section, it wasn't bad. I just slid a little bit, and then I rolled over and popped up, and I was like, ah. But it was actually good. I'm going to go on the Facebook for Monarch and tell them to, set up I was going about 20 when I hit that, 20, 25. And so that was pretty fast for that section, but.
Yeah, I was going to ask, do you think that they set them up for certain speeds?
They try. They do, but they do modify things, even since we've been going there, we've seen them adding things and moving things, and so they'll go and ride, and they'll determine, hey, we got to stretch this out a little bit, or maybe we should put three rollers in here, and if people want to triple them, that's fine. If they want to double them, that's fine.
Yeah. Because
it is nice to come down on a down ramp. I came down on the flat.
Yeah.
And I landed just fine. I would have been fine if that tree hadn't been there. But I'll show you where it is. It actually was, the trail was pretty clear, and then the trees started coming back in a little bit, and then there was one about 4-inch diameter tree sitting there. And they look small when they're that small, but man, are they not. They don't move.
They're rigid.
They do not move. Go. Oh, yeah. I hit a tree when I was racing hare scramble on my motorcycle, and my bar hit a tree, and I had bark busters, which are big aluminum protection for your hands. Mm-hmm. And I came up this rock face. It was a bunch of river rock embedded in a hill, and it was slippery and slick, and I saw it when I was coming up, and other guys were sliding back down and stuff, and I just rocketed through the creek, and I went up and just kind of step upped it a little bit, and then I was on the gas right away and took off, and there was a narrow space, which I could have made it through, but I was off to the left a little bit, and sometimes, your momentum is so hard, and I hit my left handlebar and just kicked me hard. I spun around, probably going 30, 35, spun around, and then I hit my knee, like if I had a straight leg and you hit your kneecap.
Yeah.
I hit that against a tree, but I had knee braces on with kneecap guards. So I hit that sideways like this, and it just spun me around all the way around. And I was like, I saw my knee going, and I was like, oh, there's nothing you can do. And spun me around and popped up, grabbed the bike, took off, and I won. I came in third in all classes. I started in C class. There's A, B, and C. And I wanted to race A. I started in C, and I won. By time, I won everything up to third place in A class.
Oh, so you did by time.
So I left with a trophy, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, in A class. They were like, and we should have put this guy in A class.
Yeah, because then you had to go through a lot of people.
Oh yeah, lots of people, but it was so fun. I was fresh off a motocross season, so I was just hardcore, and I was running hard, and I had wide bars for motocross, and everybody had narrow bars for hare scramble. So there's a couple of trees I had to kind of roll my handlebars between to get through. There's a couple spots where you literally had to get off your bike to get it through an obstacle. And then the rest of it was wide open. It was a lot of fun. But my butt was really sore. It was a couple hour race. My butt was so sore. I wasn't used to sitting on the seat that long, because in motocross you stand up most of the time. And my clutch hand, I couldn't pull the clutch anymore at the end of the race.
Yeah, didn't you say they usually adjust it?
Well, they use they'll put a heavier flywheel in, and I had a lightweight flywheel for motocross for fast revving. Well, I didn't know that in hare scramble, that they put a weighted flywheel in so that the motor won't quit. Like when you're lugging it, blah, 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 the flywheel carries weight and keeps everything moving. And
so does it make the clutch then easier to pull?
No, they put lighter springs in the clutch. And I have heavy springs because of the acceleration in motocross. And so, yeah.
Very opposite.
Yeah, and I had great grip and everything, but I couldn't pull the clutch in anymore at the end. I was literally, with all four fingers, I would just hook my fingers and I would pull my arm back. I wasn't doing the two or one finger. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But a lot of fun.
What size bike were you on?
250. Well, YZ 250. Back in the day before four strokes. There was four strokes in the race, but I was still on a two-stroke. Yeah, I only raced 1 year on a four-stroke. I didn't like them as much as two strokes.
Yeah.
So anyway, getting back to mountain biking and all our...
Yeah, someone asked me the other day how fast we go in the woods. Like what's our top speed together?
We hit 30.
Okay.
Which is fast.
That is fast.
Yeah.
Like where have we gone 30? I guess I don't have the reference,
Most of the downhills, like not, I won't say most, but a lot of it's on downhills. Where we're hitting 30. Yeah, we regularly, when I record the course, I use a GPS phone app.
Yeah.
I record the course regularly. Our top speed is anywhere from 26 to 30. I've had a couple of 32s, and that's fast in the woods.
Yeah, I guess when I think about it in that number, because if you were to ride 30 miles an hour on the road, you could tell.
Yeah.
Compared to being in a vehicle, but I, haven't. I'm just cruising behind you. Do.
Yeah. Well, and I stop and wait for you sometimes. I don't know if you're hitting 30 because we're not recording your speed.
Oh, that's true.
But if you're
I
keeping up.
I usually catch up with you. Yeah. I do catch up with you on the downhills. It's usually the straightaways and a few areas more like that. Yeah, I catch up to you at particular points because I notice you'll look around and you're kind of like, oh, she's right there.
Yeah.
And just, and lately, honestly, I just have not been pushing it.
Yeah, that's okay. There's no need to go fast. I was surprised when I looked at the app and I saw that that I was hitting 30 and above, I was like, wow, that's pretty good. And a couple of them, those Lebanon, we hit 30 on a regular basis.
Yeah, I know there I was riding more aggressively.
But Monarch, we've done it too. They got some nice long downhills.
Beautiful, just really nice. At least for me, at the pace and flow, they're really flowy to me.
Yeah, and we're in Minnesota. Monarch is in the Carver Park Reserve, opposite the Lowry Nature Center.
Really, if anyone hears this, it has built it. Beautiful job.
If anyone hears it, we're getting quite a few downloads.
Well, if one of those people
yeah,
hear it.
every time somebody listens, they call it a download, and so we're getting quite a few downloads now.
Well, I think Monarch. Now we've been to quite a few parks in the area, but I think Monarch and Lebanon in Egan are the top. They're my favorites.
Elm Creek is a good place to go. That's up in Maple Grove.
That one's good, but I think it's not as great.
It's not as obstacle-y. We like obstacles.
It's great that one's great for speed. If you just want to go.
Yeah.
And especially that end roller coaster.
Yeah.
Of course, is very flowy and you can just go.
We like a more technical track. Elm Creek is not dangerous. Lebanon and Monarch can be dangerous.
Yeah.
Which is, they should be a little bit more too. There should be some more danger.
Lebanon for sure is, of the tracks I've been, other than Colorado, of course, is top on the potential danger.
Well, Keystone was dangerous, and we didn't go down the hardest. We went down a section of one of the hardest ones, and that wasn't.
Yep, and I picked up my bike and walked it down.
That wasn't the place for you primarily.
Right. And we did that downhill though, where people say they freak out with the wooden path.
Berms, yeah.
Yeah. That one was fine. That one was good.
Fun.
Exciting.
We did that a lot of times. Yeah.
That one. How fast do you think we got going on that one? Now I'm on speed. I've never cared about speed before, because that one, if you let off your brakes, you were flying.
Easily, you could have been going 45, 50, 55 miles an hour really fast if you let off your brakes. We were braking the whole time. So that downhill is something totally different. I mean, when you're on a ski hill, when you're on a mountain in Colorado, it's a totally different thing. We haven't done a lot of that type of downhill.
Right.
So we've got Lutsen here in Spirit Mountain in Minnesota.
Yeah, we have yet to go there.
Which we haven't done yet. Yeah.
We should check that out this summer. That should be on our.
Well, the other thing to say is I've been very cautious with you. You don't come from a background of motorsports or extreme sports, or what they call extreme sports nowadays. When I was coming up, they just called us stupid, and then they started calling us adrenaline junkies, and then it turned into extreme sports, and
and then people got paid millions.
Yeah, and then you'd make millions off of it. Yeah, I did it before there was money in it. I mean, if you were a top motocross rider, you made money for sure, but not like they do nowadays. That's a big deal now. So.
Yeah. What do you think changed that? I mean, was it getting on ESPN or something, or what?
Probably exposing it to the world in a greater sense. Yeah, I mean, it's, the media or television is always hungering for the next big thing.
Yeah.
And now the X Games is going to be probably an Olympic event at some point, and that kind of thing. So.
Okay, so I have to ask, what are the X Games?
Well,
in my mind,
extreme games.
Okay, I got what is that?
So there's.
What was that movie where she's like the archer or whatever? The
Hunger Games.
Yeah, Hunger Games. I got some kind of vision of that as X Games. Okay, so.
Well, it's extreme sports, and it's motorsports, and it's skateboarding, and it's BMXing, and so they bike tricks, skate tricks, motorcycle tricks, and they do snowmobiles now in the X Games. They'll have X Games snowcross. They do rhythms, X Games rhythm section, or well, they call it the Red Bull rhythm section right now, but where two guys just race a rhythm section for whatever it is, a quarter mile or whatever. But yeah,
Interesting.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of money in it because there's a lot of the energy drinks and the big oil companies sponsor the races and stuff. So.
Interesting.
One thing, I know we don't do pop culture talks, but I was listening to people talk about getting rid of electric cars, or getting rid of gas engines and going to electric. And I think it's really funny because they don't realize that gasoline is a waste product. And I don't understand how politicians don't know this or they don't care, but you're still going to have with the oil refining for industry, you're still going to have all the gasoline. And the gasoline needs to be burnt. You can't put it anywhere. These waste products that you can't put anywhere have to be burnt or used or filtered. And what they do with fluoride and chlorine, which are waste products from industry, they put it in the water supply so that it's filtered through people.
Okay, let's go back to the oil. But why are they refining the oil to begin with? Are they refining it if the gasoline is a waste product, what are they actually trying to get from it?
They're making an industrial products. So you need everything that, plastic comes from oil. So, you can make plastic from plants, but, that would be more in the hemp realm. And then you can make plastic from hemp, but hemp isn't big enough yet.
Yeah.
But they're refining the crude oil to turn it into kerosene, which is used in industry, to turn it into oils, different grades of oils, which is used throughout industry. And the waste product is gasoline. So
it's wild.
Yeah, and hence we've got our massive industries producing plastics and nylon and polys and all these different things, and anything molded parts for internal components for implantables in human beings. They're made from plastics, which are made from oil, and then the waste product is gasoline. So you're going to have all this gasoline that they say we have to stop burning in combustion engines. Where are you going to put it? You can't put it anywhere. It's corrosive. You have to burn it.
So you've mentioned before, I don't know if you mentioned on the podcast, we've gotten into the electric car debacle.
Yeah.
But let's take a different spin and compare it to e-bikes.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. Let's compare it to e-bikes.
Okay.
So talking before about the electric cars, they have such huge batteries, and they're literally having to strip mine.
Well, and there's oil used in the production of everything on a car. An e-car, paint, rubber, everything uses oil. Everything.
So I would imagine
all the waste product is gas. So
I would imagine that, if I were to say, John, how does a e-bike compare to electric car? And you'd be like, well, obviously they're two different vehicles, so to speak, but they're worlds apart.
I don't have a problem with I don't have a problem with small batteries, right? Smaller batteries. Like an e-bike has a lot of batteries compared to, say, a cell phone or a computer. I don't have a problem with computer batteries, cell phone batteries, batteries in your AirPods, in your Bluetooth device, right? This is very small stuff. And I didn't even have a problem with like Tesla. Say Tesla being the only electric car company, because they're not gonna, they would never dominate the market. They would never get to the point where everybody was buying a Tesla. One company couldn't do that, right? Unless they were the only company producing, and then everything was going. But and the majority of people would never switch over, because in cold environments the batteries are shit, And until the battery technology gets to the point where it's non-wasteful and it's ubiquitous, right? But it takes very rare minerals. It takes lithium, and lithium is found, I don't know, maybe in 6 or 7 spots on the planet so far. And all you have to do is look up lithium mine on the internet, and you're going to fall out of your chair. It's one of the most devastating types of mining, and so it's and where they're finding the lithium is in lands where there's indigenous people living. So they're getting rid of the people. They're killing off the people. They start by trying to kill the leaders of the tribes so that the tribes disperse, right? They get scared and there's no leader. And then when the people don't leave, they move on to doing other things to them because they want the minerals under the land. Most tribal lands are waste lands, right? Like they're places nobody wants to live, so the governments give that to the tribe. And then once they find out there's valuable minerals under that soil, then they're like, oh, now we got to move these people. Well, they don't want to move, and they have a lot of rights nowadays. So then they take the drug cartels and they say, there's a drug war here. And oh no, a bunch of people got killed in this tribe because of the drug war. The cartels, aren't they bad? But the cartels are working for the governments. And so anybody can do this kind of research. And the best way to research it is to go talk to the indigenous tribes, as we have. We have done this. And so we know firsthand what's going on. And it's atrocity. It's a genocide. It's an atrocity. It's crazy for electric cars. It's for electric cars. It's not because of your cell phone. It's not because of your computer, because that uses minimal. It's not even for electric bikes. If everybody on the planet had an electric bike, that would be nothing compared to the amount of batteries that are in the cars and the amount of lithium that's needed to operate that car. And we don't produce enough electricity on the planet for everybody to have an electric car. So that's a very massive hurdle that can never be overcome unless all these people that want a clean planet, unless they want to put up, maybe say 50,000 nuclear plants, then we could produce enough electricity, but now we're producing nuclear waste. So I think we'd go farther if there was a kid, I think it was a 12 or 13-year-old, probably from the Netherlands or something, that produced a battery out of nuclear waste that would last 300,000 years or something. It was crazy. The materials that are housing it wouldn't even hold up for probably 30,000 years or even 3,000 years, So, but he created a battery that was supposedly would run for, let's say, 3,000 years.
You use, in your company, you use biodegradable coolant. It's green coolant.
It has some oil in it, not enough. It's not solid oil. There's oil in it because we can't use straight. If we use water, everything rusts, right?
Right.
You can't, and we can't have that. So you got to have some oil in it.
And there are synthetic oils.
Plant-based.
Plant-based.
Amsoil is a company that makes all their oil off of plant-based.
Right.
It's all plant-based.
And there are ways to make fuel from plants. That's like diesel fuel, an equivalent.
Yep. Well, they make ethanol from corn. You can make it from sorghum. You can make it from cattails. You can make alcohol gas.
Is there a gasoline equivalent that you can make out of plants that you know of?
Well, part of the problem even with alcohol gas is what they do is they put a percentage in the regular gas, and if part of the problem is you have to all right, so it sounds like a great idea, but the plant-based gas eat the petroleum-based products, so you have gaskets and rubber in your engines, and then so you have to have a special highly dense synthetic O-rings and gaskets that won't be eaten by the ethanol. And so now you're using more oil in a denser way to protect it from,
Yeah.
it's the conundrum in industry. Like, let's say you want to build 1 million of something. Well, you have to have you want to do that in a year. You have to have a very fast production line, or you have to have many production lines. Well, you hit the point of diminishing returns in both ends, right? So if you got a square graph, you need your ramp up to be a diagonal line from corner to corner, right? You can't make it go straight up this way or straight out that way for speed or quantity, right? It's got to go like that. Otherwise, you hit the diminishing returns. Well, we'll just build 1 million assembly lines and we'll build 1 part per assembly line. Or we'll build 1 assembly line and we'll build 1,000,000 parts. But what happens if you build 1 assembly line that's building 1,000,000 parts? Now you get components that wear out fast in your assembly line, right? So let's say you build 10 assembly lines to build 1,000,000 parts. Each one builds 100,000 parts a year. And then you spread out the wear and you spread out. But now you're using more materials to do, so
Yeah.
it's manufacturing is like statistics. Like you said, most people don't understand statistics. Well, I'll guarantee you the people that are talking about the environment and all these things, I'll guarantee you they grab a plastic container every single day. They toss out, aluminum foil, plastic, everything in their trash. They might send it to recycling, but they're still using it. I mean, recycling is a way to get people to feel good about using, stuff that, I think out of the recycling, they probably only recycle 30%. They can't recycle 100% of everything.
Yeah, there's so many factors, right?
Yeah.
Is it a container that, like, I just threw away? A lot of it's packaging.
Yes.
And so, like, there's plastic glued to cardboard for packaging, and you tear off the plastic, but it still has glue and cardboard attached to it.
And the reason you have to do that is because if the more organic you want to be, the more you have to have a fresh container. So these plastic containers are freshness containers, right? Some of them are 14 layers. So if, again, you go into manufacturing and you find out how things are made, there's permeable layers, there's sealant layers, there's breathable layers, there's all these things to allow gases to get out, because everything that's made except for like McDonald's burgers and stuff are degrading as soon as you make them, right? They have a shelf life. So, and when they degrade, they're off-gassing, right?
Let's just say certain fast food, perhaps, because there's probably others, but not to name names.
Sure. But you're off-gassing. So just open a container and smell. If you can smell it, that's gas. And the whatever's in the container is degrading.
Or we know, like, if you want to ripen a banana quicker, you put it in a bag or something.
You put it with other bananas and it'll ripen faster.
Yeah, the off-gassing is what...
Keep the gas in the container, yeah.
And so hence you don't want that if you're trying to keep it fresher for people to purchase.
Anything you can smell is in the air. There's particulate in the air. It's a gas. Anything. Somebody farts, you smell it, you're smelling particulate in the air. You can figure out what it is.
I'm just going to let people imagine.
Well, I like being a little bit raw sometimes.
So you're saying that even in some circumstances, because of all these layers of the plastic or product that make it not recyclable. Is that what you're saying?
Some of it's not recyclable. Even some of the stuff you're putting in like a container, a plastic jar, that can be recycled because it'll go into a chipper. They'll chip it up small and then they'll melt it. It will never be like the original plastic.
Right.
It will be a degraded plastic, which then they label as recycled container, because they want you to know that this was repurposed. And when you repurpose something, just so people understand, it becomes something else. So when you remelt plastic, it is not that plastic anymore. It is a different form of something, which may leach into, recycled products may leach the things into your food that the original product didn't, right? So you take a a non-BPA plastic, right? Well, if you shred that and remelt it and turn it into a different container, it may now contain BPA because you reheated it, the constituents change, the molecular structure changes, and then you can reform it back into something, and now it's leaching into your food, whatever the things is you don't want.
I don't think I've seen too many recycled food containers, but from what I remember, I think a lot of the recycled plastic is turned into like the outdoor furniture kind of stuff.
Sure.
And because the color doesn't.
And you could only do it so many times.
Yeah.
So like we work with implantables in the body. Well, you can only have one heat signature on plastic. So you get, when you make molded parts that are going to go in the body, you get them in pellet form or powder form, and you then push it through a heat structure into a mold. You have to melt it so it forms to the mold, right? And then you get your part. Well, that's one heat signature. If there's more than one, it becomes something different. And so you can't then put it in the body because it'll probably be carcinogenic. And that's why we can't have components like that from other countries, because most other countries, you can't trust what they're using. Steel from China, you can't trust it. Stainless steel. We have seen stainless steel from China and it rusts like a mother, and it's like, what in the heck? Okay, this isn't stainless steel. It's got way too much iron in it or other components than, not enough chrome and, whatever.
Yeah.
So there'll be nickel and chrome and different things like that in stainless that doesn't rust, and a small amount of iron. If you're getting martinistic or austentistic metals, and I'm not going to go too technical on everything, but getting back to cars, we can't do electric cars. I mean, every car company now is trying to do an electric car. That is going to be the destruction of the environment. And it's just total. I want to use so many words. We're trying to have a clean podcast here. And I want to just explicate the fact that these people have no idea what they're talking about, these politicians. If they would just shut their mouths, our lives would be fine. People, regular people like you and me, need to stop being political. They have politicized everybody to the point where you don't even get along with your relatives if they're from the opposite party. And it's, there's so many words I want to use. I want to go on an e-rant that would change our recording, our podcast. iTunes would say, you said that this was suitable for 16-year-olds. But it's disgusting. It's ridiculous. It's disgusting. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. They have polarized and politicized the entire country to the point where people actually think who you choose for president matters, because presidents are signing too many executive orders and nothing is really going through Congress. Both parties are not doing anything. And just claiming all this virtue that they're going to save the planet and change the climate and all this stuff that they have no possible control over. I mean, even if there is, take HARP as a conspiracy, even if there is HARPs all over the planet, like there is, they can influence, they can't control. I mean, you might be able to say, we're going to bring in a bunch of humidity here and make it rain, but that causes something else somewhere to happen, right? So anyway, getting back to cars.
Is mountain biking and
anybody you talk to in manufacturing that doesn't have a financial stake in electric cars thinks that the entire process and the idea of it is so there's a word I want to use. Starts with an R, ends with a D. And it's way on the spectrum, like on one direction. And it is so asinine and ridiculous and fruitless and disgusting, and it doesn't make any sense. I mean, find me a machinist or somebody that's not a manager in manufacturing, but somebody that actually does things in manufacturing that's driving an electric car. You won't.
Yeah.
Because everybody knows. I mean,
I think there's also, I mean, to grant it, there's an appreciation of this type of person for the sound of a V8, for example, and the mechanics of a mechanical engine like that.
One thing about electric, right? There's less moving parts. It's simple. It makes sense if we can get power from something that doesn't cause 2-mile wide holes in the earth. You know, and the amount of energy used to get that lithium is insane. I you know what, I would love to do a documentary and visit these mines and show the gigantic earth moving equipment that they're using, and then do all of the fuel consumption, what it takes to build these gigantic dump trucks that are as big as our house. You know, and these gigantic earth movers, these huge excavators that literally the bucket is as big as wide as our house.
Yeah.
And it's like, I can't, I'm really.
And they actually use tires.
It's hilarious that you brought this up, because I'm like.
Sorry, I didn't mean to like.
No, now I'm revved up. Now
yeah, I can tell. And it is astounding, you know, when it's broken down in these terms. You know, yeah.
We're supposed to be doing marital arts.
Well, this is a part of life, right? What if a couple is having this conversation and they're deciding what next vehicle to buy, right? What if instead of, this would be quite a contrast, right? I recently bought a Toyota Sequoia. Big vehicle. We are pulling got a camper to finally do some camping, mountain biking stuff. But what if I was different and I said, no, I don't want to do those things, John. We can still use your
because it hurts the environment.
You get amazing gas mileage with your vehicle, and I think we should go electric with our
well,
next
you know
vehicle.
why the electric car exists? Because Elon Musk is a smart guy. Okay, he's a very smart guy, but he's smart in a different way than what people actually understand. He's smart. He's timely with. This is a political issue, right? And you can get a lot of money for green. I had a few offers a few years ago, and I could have gone down the green path. But the green path is not what people think it is. It's a political issue. It's not an oil problem, right? Excuse me. They're as the human race, as the developed countries, we are clean. We are clean already. You know, if people went back in history and saw the pollution of the rivers, I mean, the rivers were so polluted they were on fire. 80, 90 years ago. I mean, when the Industrial Revolution started, that's when things are the messiest, right? Because people didn't think. They weren't like, oh, well, we're going to wreck this if we dump this in here. They thought, right. Well, there's enough water to dilute what we're dumping in here.
Right.
But then it went and got more and went farther and farther, and then the rivers were on fire, and then people were like, okay, we can't, we got to change what we're doing, you know, and even the industrialists, you know, they saw what was going on, and they're like, oh yeah, we shouldn't be doing that, you know, and because people aren't only about money, you know, and even if they are only about money, they still have to maintain an image, right? And that's what all of this became. It's a political issue. It's an expedient way to get money that nobody has an answer for. It's like climate change. You know, you could say climate change all day long, and it doesn't have any meaning. There's nothing you can put in a wheelbarrow about climate change.
Well, and it's too big of an issue for most people, I think, to
It's
grasp.
so big
Yeah.
that you can't even think about it.
It's kind of like the whole COVID thing, is that people take the chunk that they can understand, but it's so much bigger than.
This is what they've done. They're using NLP. okay, the first president, Barack Obama, he was the first president to use NLP, and he used it effectively. He said hope and change, and whatever that meant to people, it was a nebulous phrase, and what he did is he allowed people to formulate whatever it is. It's like if I say to you, I'm going to make you rich, and and I'm like, what does that mean to you? And you're like, I could have $50,000 a year, and I could, and I could then buy a car and get a house, and that's great. And the person standing next to you is like, I could be a multi-billionaire. That's great. Well, it's two disparate realities of what rich is. Mm-hmm. And so that's what NLP can do, right? That it's mind effery, right? It's mind effing is what they used to call it. When the military used it, they were like, this is great. This is mind effing, and we can use this. It can be used for good to help people get over phobias, become better at things in life, because NLP is about modeling. If one person can do it, another person can do it. They just have to observe, follow the structure, do what the other person does, practice the way they practice, find efficiencies, and then you can do it. Learn a language, run some kind of sport. Well, let's jump back to Elon Musk for a second.
Okay.
So his the things that he's working on are not original, and I like the guy. I'm not saying anything bad. I mean, he's making an electric car. We have cars, right? An electric car. We've had electric cars since the 1800s, and rockets. He's doing rockets. Well, we have rockets, and he's doing rockets that can take off and land. Well, that's not his origination. We worked on the Morpheus lander, which is going to Mars, and it's a single engine articulating bell on the engine so the rocket can take off and fly and land. Mm-hmm. And so that's not originated by him. They're talking about the Hyperloop. Well, it's a super fast train. That's a train. It's not originated by him. He was a part owner in PayPal, right? And they started online banking and money exchange. Well, that's not an original idea either. So
was it original that it could be between consumers?
Potentially. Yeah. But I mean, it's basically just exchanging money electronically, right? Versus mm-hmm. handing it to someone or sending them a check. So it's not an original invention or idea. It might be improving on something that exists, but also it's taking advantage of the opportunity that, okay, now we can do things online. And maybe they came up with the first consumer-based encryption that could do that kind of thing. Yeah. But the encryption already existed because banks have been doing it ever since the internet existed. Mm-hmm. So I'm not trying to take away from what he's doing or take away from his, obviously, if anybody listens to this, they're going to be like, well, who are you compared to him? Well, that's great. But he's great at getting money. If I was to look at him and somebody said, what is Elon Musk good at? He's good at getting investors. And that is probably one of his best skills. He's super smart. He can program, he's all that kind of stuff. But it is quite a skill to get people to invest in what you want to do. Mm-hmm. And I know he took a bunch of his own money from the PayPal sale to invest in the first things that he wanted to do. And so
that's pretty convincing to future investors if you're willing to put your own money
if you're going to put your hundreds of millions or billions into whatever you're doing, that means you've got skin in the game. You believe in yourself and what you're doing. Mm-hmm. But I don't think. I think there should be so much more effort if you've got that kind of money, putting into 0 point energy, vacuum energy. fission, fusion, fusion, cold fusion, versus hot fusion, that kind of stuff. That, oh, hey, look, and we've got all this nuclear waste. What do we do with it? Well, we can make a 9-volt battery that will last for 1,500 years. Oh, well, why don't we do that? Mm-hmm. Instead of mining lithium out of the ground, and I might be talking out of my butt a little bit because I'm not in that work. I don't know 100%.
Well, I think even the nuclear, they have to obtain the raw materials in some kind of way. They're not
Uranium.
Yeah.
Well, we're talking about waste.
Okay.
So the waste is going to be hot for, 1.5 million years or something like that. So why not try and utilize that? Why not try and recycle that?
Utilize the waste. Like you started this out, gasoline is a waste product.
Right.
Which, yeah.
Right. As long as we're using oil from the ground, we're never getting rid of gasoline. Mm-hmm. So what are we going to do with all the gasoline waste?
Do you think that this is a tangential question, like the whole climate issue is so, and I know there are going to be people who really vehemently disagree, and this is part of the whole issue. But anyways, do you think that having a smaller group of people out in the country and majority of people in the cities is less wasteful, as opposed to having more of a diaspora of people throughout, having bigger suburbs? Because I hear that argument that cities are actually take less energy.
Well, if you had your own garden, you were canning, like back in the day, you would have virtually no waste, right?
Well, usually you're reusing the canning products.
Right.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that you're more economical.
There'd be no packaging waste. There'd be
the fuel transport.
There'd be very few plastics. There'd be, so if you had smaller, if you had communities like where we live, and there was a, they were selling canned goods at the farmer's market, canned in, canning jars and that type of stuff. And then at the end of the year, you brought your jars back, and
like a CSA, they do have wax coated boxes, for example, but you reuse them. The point is you can't recycle those; they don't decompose well. But the idea is you're using them hundreds of times.
Right.
Yeah.
Instead of single use, so you can imagine the amount of cardboard that Amazon's going through.
Only by what comes through our place.
Well, literally thousands of boxes a year just to us, with business and with regular consumer purchases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like just thinking about Zappos, so we order through Zappos on occasion. Mm-hmm. They're actually reusing. I mean, of course, once it stays at your house, the box is at your house.
The box goes in the garbage, yeah.
But when they ship to you, you can just pop it back in the box and ship it back if it doesn't work for you.
Yeah.
So I think there are solutions that are coming to play. Anyway, getting off on a tangent a little bit. So I think the argument is that when people are more close together in a city, for example, you need one truck to deliver the fresh produce from the country, as opposed to, how does that compare to, does everybody have their own garden?
As opposed to everybody driving to the farmer's market.
Or once a week to the CSA, assuming that they're even doing that. How when we lived closer to our favorite co-op, we were going every day, every other day.
Right. And
now that we live further out, we don't go as much. So I can see the argument where like the suburbs are more of a waste because people aren't gardening as much, I would say, in the suburbs. And it's so easy to just go here and there, every day.
If there was just a plan, take just a average sized neighborhood with say 400 houses or something like that, right? And everybody planted a fruit tree, just one per yard. And so we had apples, and we had too many apples. Our neighbor has oranges. We trade some apples for oranges, and now we got apples and oranges, right? And then the neighbor down the road planted plums, and so now we're trading some apples for plums. And so, and then we're making apple preserves and apple pie, and maybe even dried apple fruit roll up kind of things, and then we're exchanging those for more fruit, or we're selling them because they,
or someone else made their plum preserves and we exchange.
Right, we exchange or we sell, or somebody that doesn't want to do all the work buys, and just one fruit tree per yard. Now think of one vegetable per yard.
Now I'm going to open up another big can of worms. Okay.
So you need worms if you're going to garden.
Yes. So I was fond of Floringos Wilder stuff when I was growing up.
Yeah.
And so, when it came to canning time, especially then, you'd have your sister-in-law over, or you would get together as groups of women.
Grandma and all the
and the
daughter-in-laws
daughters
would get together, and daughters.
And as soon as the little tyke was big enough to do some kind of job, they were doing something.
You could put a stool up to the counter, and there'd be
right, and they would be learning.
Little girl would learn.
Now, so yesterday.
Now they're learning how to do TikToks.
Yesterday we were working from a coffee shop and sitting outside, and there was a group of ladies sitting next to us, all working women. Some of them had kids, most of them married, and it couldn't. I mean, they were right next to us, so I couldn't help but overhear.
Yep.
And I can identify as being a woman who, if we lived in the olden days and we were doing all this stuff, I'd probably be just fine, because we'd be like, there's plenty to take care of, But I am a person that needs something to do, like something to work on.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can understand, especially the feminist movement in one regards, where it was like, women are more valuable than just doing housework. Well, okay, now we're getting to my point of the point that I'm making. How valuable is it to have the ability to make, preserve, culture, your own food, more nutritious food, and also being economical, not only in the monetary sense, but when we have a bunch of canning jars still from several years ago when I was canning, it's very rewarding to have a garden, to open up that can of whatever it is, or your husband is like, oh, these pickles are amazing.
Well, salsa in the middle of winter, or tomato sauce for spaghetti or pasta, and pickles. Yeah, your pickles were off the charts.
And so getting back to
so fresh.
This group of women, I can hear and I can identify too, and we don't have little kids running around, but I think it's kind of a catch-22, and it's going to be different for every woman. But it's like you feel good about what you're able to do and accomplish and bring home the bacon and fry it in a pan kind of deal, which the reference I only learned from my older husband.
Your older husband?
Yes.
Who's that? Older than me? What? Are you a polygamist? What's going on?
But I'll say, just speaking for myself, there are times where it's like, I wish things were simpler in a way, and slowed down. And I do think it's a really healthy solution if more of us could slow down and have our own gardens, but it takes conscious, deliberate effort, because our life is so hurried.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much activity going on that we've been there, to justify doing your own.
Well, it's easy enough to go to the store, right? And it's not bad enough eating the store food yet that you're having illness from it.
Or availability.
Right. Well, and people found out this last year, there's a lot of places around the United States, they just had the hacking of the pipeline and the hacking of the meatpacking plant and the hacking of some people in Congress's servers and that kind of stuff. People are realizing that they need to be prepared. It's not just having a garden or having some food stores or having a couple freezers full of frozen food, meats and different things like we've always done. I've always done that, that. But it's what happens if you can't go to the grocery store for 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And then you go there, and we just saw that for the first time this last year. There was a lot of products that were out.
Yeah.
And we've never seen that in America. I mean, you've seen products disappear, like the company went bankrupt or whatever.
Yeah, but they'll fill the shelf with something else right away. They're
Yeah.
not going to have empty space.
No, there was empty space this
Yeah.
last year, which is really effed up.
Yeah.
It's like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And lots of people, I mean, everybody I know, planted a garden and this year and is like, hey, we gotta make sure we have this type of stuff.
Yeah.
And, so yeah, it's not just that it's wholesome food, it's that it's food that you have, and it's great because your garden food, your own chickens with your own eggs and that kind of stuff it's awesome. It's
all of the
more
above.
nutritious, it's more flavorful, it's fresher, it's
Are we talking ourselves into
gardening and having chickens again? Yeah.
I did order a permaculture book that.
Well, we've had up to 42 chickens, so that we weren't small chicken farmers. We were good medium size. We were actually selling eggs because we had too many.
Yeah, ambitious beginners.
Yeah. Well, yeah, about I'd say 16, 18 is good for us.
Oh yeah.
That's 18 eggs a day.
Then at peak, we'd still
be selling
some to share. We can trade for someone else's jam or something,
right?
Or apples or plums.
Oranges, an orange tree in Minnesota.
Imagine that, boy! The neighbors who have that, we had to check their basement. What else are they growing?
Well, they probably have to have a greenhouse. So
a really, really great greenhouse.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Check their basement.
Yeah. Well, like you said, this probably is going to be our first paid podcast. I mean, the information that I let out in this one, lots of people don't know. I don't want to be debating anybody on the national stage, because it's an emotional issue, right? People are, they're devastated because the environment is being destroyed, or the ice is melting and the polar bears don't have a home, or baby seals don't have anywhere to, whatever it is, people,
Yeah.
it's an emotional deal. They don't live in the Antarctic or they don't live in the Arctic, and they have no idea. They only know what they see on TV and what the politicians are saying. And a lot of those people are just outright lying. And, hopefully it changes in the near future. It should be illegal for a politician to lie or not tell the truth or not even relay information they don't have 100% facts on.
Well, maybe we experiment by actually making this one public and just kind of see how it goes.
What the slapback is?
Well, let's just hopefully
It won't come now. It'll come if this ever gets popular.
Yeah.
That's when it'll come, and then I'll get ripped apart for all of that I said, and then I'll have to. I mean, I got 32 years in manufacturing.
Well, that's the thing, I think hopefully this inspires people to, the example that I said, maybe there's a couple, because you're like, how does this relate to marital arts? Maybe there's a couple that's debating on their next vehicle, and one is saying we need to go electric, and the other one's like, no, we need to stay gas, and actually we need to go with a pre-1983 vehicle, so in case the E-bomb comes, that we can still drive a vehicle. I don't remember what year it is.
Well, I'll just put it out there. If you go electric, you are one of the most wasteful people on the planet.
So
if you go with an electric car.
That said,
we didn't even talk about what you do with those batteries when they're dead. You can't do anything with them. And in my opinion, they're going to fine you. They're going to charge you to dispose of them in the future. And it's going to cost probably half as much as your car costs.
If not directly, it will be taxed.
And then people...
So we can take hazardous waste into the county department or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And they don't charge us, or maybe a really nominal fee, but our taxes pay for that disposal.
Right.
So you pay for it one way or another.
Right.
So hang on, hopefully people have gotten this far. And maybe we need to put a warning at the beginning. This is actually meant to
Should we talk about solar? Let's talk about solar.
This is meant to inspire conversation or research.
Yeah.
And you do come from a background, a knowledgeable background of experience in practical experience. So hopefully this just inspires people maybe to look a little differently. So for example, I brought up, and I know we got to wrap up here soon, but I brought up
Why
that
do we have to wrap up?
my recent vehicle purchase is a gas guzzler. But I'm going to use this as an example because what most people don't know is that, first of all, I hardly ever drive. My last vehicle lasted 15 years. And so if we just go on those two
Well, there was
principles,
235,000 on it when we sold it.
yeah, over 16 years. So just on those two principles, there are people who drive 4-cylinder cars that go through them every 4 or 5 years way faster with more waste
Yeah.
than
Than a
I do
V8.
with my new vehicle. And so I bring that up as an example because, you know, we need to take a step back,
Mm-hmm.
right? And rather than just get all in a frenzy, yeah, you know, to gather some information. And that is what makes it hard, is that there's so much information out there, and who do you listen to?
Well,
you know, maybe our paid stuff turns into, we're kind of a business talk here because we're also married and in business. Maybe our paid stuff also becomes finding some of these people. Like you said, we have been to the Andes and with the indigenous tribe there and heard firsthand what's going on. And, you know, that can be quite contentious as well.
Yeah.
But, you know, having that firsthand knowledge, or secondhand in that case, is so helpful, you know, and not just listening to the talking heads or the politicians who are trying to sway you one way or another so they can get their agenda passed, because in that bill are 10 other things that you don't know about.
Yeah. Well, that's a rabbit hole of extreme measure. That's a multi-leveled rabbit hole.
John, I'm done with multi-levels for my lifetime.
No, just to mention about solar too, because people are like, well, you could charge the batteries from solar, and you know, all these solar farms you see around now, we see them all over the place. The government paid for it. They gave people money to put in solar, and you get the free electricity from your solar, and then you sell back, or a percentage you get to sell back, and then the power company takes a percentage. I don't know exactly how all the ratios work, but 15 years from now, those solar panels are going to be toxic waste, and you have to pay to get them disposed of. It's my contention that you are going to not have any profitability from what you did, and it's all a government program. And in my opinion, it's an experiment, and it's a bad experiment, because people just want to put money into what they consider green. The result of these green programs is toxic waste. The gigantic windmills, the blades are fiberglass, they're non-recyclable, and they're burying those blades once they're bad in landfills, and fiberglass does not degrade. That will take 1 million years to degrade. It doesn't come up. It's a resin. It's an epoxy resin, and it's hard, and it's, like I said, it's unrecyclable. And so they're waste. And it's better the waste you know than the waste you don't know how to deal with, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, take the waste we know, take nuclear waste. And if somebody has developed, which I read this article, a battery that can be made from nuclear waste, why are not batteries being made from nuclear waste? It's a very small amount in a small battery, in a AA or a 9-volt or whatever it is. And if that could power a flashlight for X number of hundreds of years, why not? Why not continually deplete that energy out of that waste and make it more neutral, you know? But there's no money in that for people that don't own that waste. Mm-hmm. That's why other people are like, oh, green, yeah, let's jump on it. You know, I had another guy tell me, well, you were there, I don't know what it was a year ago. He's like, oh, green is where you got to go, and you got to get into green. And I'm like, God, I just don't want to have this conversation with another freaking idiot. You know, it's like
someone who's never been in manufacturing is particularly what.
Yeah, it's a business opportunity. I get it. Hey, you should sell carbon credits. It's a business opportunity. I had that argument with a guy 18 years ago in Brazil. You know, and it's like, what? Carbon credits? Do you know what you're doing?
It's ultimate in NLP.
Do you know what you're doing to the environment? Do you know what you're doing to people? Do you know that what you're doing is a farce? You know, it's like we need more carbon in the air. The plants breathe carbon. Plants grow from carbon. We need more carbon. We'll have more plants. Our crops will grow bigger and better.
I did hear the concept the other day, though, that, not to be contrarian, I just found it interesting, that yes, the plants do grow bigger, faster, and so forth, but it's kind of like the fertilizer that's injected it's put into the soil. The plants are growing faster, but they don't have all the nutrients that they're supposed to have.
Well, that's because the minerals are gone from the soil.
Right. So maybe it's a part of the piece of the puzzle that, first of all, there aren't as many minerals in the soil.
What if the plants could grow without the nitrogen and the phosphorus being injected in the soil, and then the plant material, based on, you know, good root systems, and you had organic growing practices, bringing the minerals back up into the soil, and not just growing monocrops, but then plowing down in some of those crops for green fertilizer and reconstituting the soil.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many things that could be done.
I think it's pretty logical. You know, you even see in a human being you can tell if they're full grown but they've been malnourished, or like a teenager that grows really fast but's living off of fast food. You know, I think it's...
Well, let's take the UFC, for example, when guys start breaking.
Yeah.
Right? They've been on TRT or testosterone or steroids or whatever for how many years, and they've just been going off of that, right?
Yep.
They're just piling the food in, eating, they got big muscles, they're fighting, they're fast, and then all of a sudden they break their leg.
Yep.
They break their arm. They get their ocular socket busted, their jaw gets broken. And that never would have happened to them 10 years ago, because their bone density was intense, because they were training more naturally, and they just got onto the prescription method of how to get big and strong and fast.
And
right?
even if you're taking a lot of supplements, you're just putting so much stress on your body, you can't take in enough
Well, you
nutrients.
don't have to train as hard when you're taking the pharmaceutical route, right? Because your recovery is just happening more. You know, you don't have to run as far, you don't have to lift as much, you don't have to, you know, all these things. So your body then reacts in not having as strong of a frame.
Compared to the old farmer,
Oh,
right?
God.
Who's never taken, you know, any of the those types of pharmaceuticals, at least. But yeah, they're...
It'd be hilarious putting an old farmer in there.
Farmer fight?
Oh, God, they could kick him in the head all day. They'd never get knocked out. They'd grab their leg, they'd snap it, they'd throw him out of the ring.
Well, I don't know if I remember, so I grew up in the country, and I remember like the
Me too.
presidential physical fitness tests,
Yeah.
or even just being on the playground. The farm kids, which a lot of them were, holy crap, like they're just like, they could climb up the rope, the rope with just their arms, and you know, just do like fastest miles.
Well,
and
try throwing bales all summer long, and because you put them up in the barn, then you got to take them down.
Well, and they were like 9 and 10 years old.
Yeah,
I mean, and it was just like, my God, where did this kid come from? And then, you know, I watched them run the mile-long driveway to catch the bus sometimes. And
and
their mom wasn't sitting there with the car.
They're like the fastest kids on the block.
Oh, totally, yeah. Maybe if the weather was really bad, the mom would drive down to the end of the driveway.
Oh, if it was a blizzard, she would take you down to the end of the driveway.
Yeah, but that was like it.
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah, otherwise, you know, they had to walk the long driveway between the fields.
Yeah.
And
it wasn't a question. The kids didn't complain. We didn't complain. If it was snowing out, we were out playing. We were playing outside before the bus showed up.
Yeah.
And we didn't even want to get on the bus. We wanted to keep building forts and playing and snowball fights and, you know, adventuring and, you know, you didn't want to go to school.
Yeah.
No,
so
I mean farmers nowadays. I mean, my hands aren't small, but holy cow, my hand can disappear in a farmer's hand.
So we have the Ultimate Farmer Championship. Is that what we're starting?
Yeah.
Well, you could tell even the fighters that grew up they're usually wrestlers too.
Well, the farmers wouldn't take time off to train. They'd be like, I don't have time for that.
No, but you could, like I'm saying, you could tell the ones that grew up on the farms.
Oh, yeah.
There's Matt, it's not Matt Sarah, Matt Hughes.
Yeah.
Was one of them, and he still was farming, I
Yeah.
think, or
Farmer,
had a family.
wrestler.
Yeah. So, yeah, totally different. On the verge of like, those wrestlers are crazy though. Like the true come up through school wrestling,
Yeah.
like they're just I think
Yeah.
overboard.
Day before weigh-in, they're doing spit cups constantly, and they let them do it in school. They would be spitting all day long to get rid of water weight, and yeah.
Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah, well, reusable energy, in my opinion, our green energy is reusable energy should be the topic. That's actually a really good phrase, isn't it? Reusable energy. Instead of, I mean, geez, I think let's take small solar panels. Like I have a couple of solar panels that charge up our electric generator, and it takes a decent amount of time. It could take 8 hours to charge it if it was dead. And you can run the solar panels while you're using it, so it only discharges by a third instead of as much as it would. And, that kind of thing is okay. But when you start putting solar panels out in fields and all this kind of stuff, and then they never tell you what they're doing with the waste. They never tell you it's non-recyclable. They're going to put it in containers, and they're going to bury it in the ground, and they're going to do this type of stuff, and then 20 years from now they're going to be like, oh, we have a problem. All this is leaking.
Do you think they're also just kind of gambling and betting that they'll have
no,
a solution by
they're
then?
getting paid. That's it. They're getting paid. There's not a future plan, and most people don't have a future plan for the process they're getting paid for, because it's all about the money now. And you've seen me say no to a lot of things because I look forward and I say that's not what I want to be remembered for. That's not what I want. Even if I'm never remembered, I don't want to be remembered for something that was terrible. I don't want to be part of it. I believe deeply in karma. I believe deeply in precedent that you set, and I believe in being an example at whatever level you can be. I believe in morals and integrity. I believe in doing things correctly, and just I've made mistakes, obviously, because I haven't been the where I get that is probably mostly from my parents, and probably what I came here with. I know that I came here with lots of integrity and truth and understanding and determination about what I wanted to do. My parents said from a very young age, I was very determined. Before I could speak, I was understanding everything, that was going on, and they could talk to me, and I would respond and do everything that was asked, or I could, if they said, where is this? Like if I took it, tools or whatever it was, or, my cars or whatever I was playing with, I would respond in kind that I understood what was going on. Before I could read, I had books memorized that my mom would read to me, and my parents thought I could read. And I would be turning the page, and I would be saying the words verbatim, and my mom freaked out one time. She's like, Dale, John can read. And my dad comes in and laughs, and he goes, no, he memorized that. You've read it. You read those books to him every night. He's got them memorized. But yeah, I can't do things that waste. I can't do, I've had opportunities to make money, that would waste a lot of time and would be destructive, and I won't do it. Doesn't matter. You can't pay me enough to do it.
So I think that's a good point, a noble point. I don't think everybody knows that about you, and that's something that I see you know? And so on the surface, you can seem like this bold and sometimes brash person, and people don't always take the time, you know, or have the situation to have it revealed to them what you just said. And so it's a good thing it's coming out if they've listened this long. So,
Yeah.
But I think what you just mentioned, that you've turned down working on projects because they're wasteful, ultimately, can they make a lot of money, and is there that evidence? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think at the root of it, we have this conflict of human nature. And human nature, I'll use this illustration. My grandma, who just turned 80, said that up in northern Minnesota, where she grew up, they didn't know that they were poor until they got a TV, which I think she
Right.
said was like the late 50s or something.
Yeah.
And until then, you know, they just had radio, so you couldn't see the difference between what they were putting on TV, what was potential, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They were wearing their calico dresses, and on TV they had something different.
Right.
And I think as human beings, we're generally content if we have our basic needs met. But once we go to the big city or see the TV or see Instagram or whatever's going on in front of us, that we could have more, we could live differently, it's appealing. Whatever appeals to us may be different. And so it's human nature to seek that, I'll just call it improvement, that next step up. And I think in a way that's healthy, you know, because that's how we don't get depressed or stay depressed for a long time, is we have something to look forward to and build towards. So what is part of the problem, which is our desire for more, to improve, to create, we're naturally creative beings, is also part of our demise. And that is that this need and this desire for more, you know, the next outfit, even the bigger house, you know, the standards for a home for people have at least doubled, I would say.
Quadrupled.
And, you know, that most families have 2 vehicles,
Yeah.
you know, so the standards have changed. And so I think we're in a conundrum where, you know, our desire to have these improvements or to have more conflicts with the need to reduce, you know, reduce consumption. And it's something that I think we, on an individual basis, need to face. And it's different for each individual, because it might be easier for one family to reduce in a certain area, but not in another.
Well, you have to desire it too, and you have to draw a line. You have to draw a moral line. You have to decide what it is that you are willing to do. You know, a lot of people. I had people say to me in the past, but if you do that and you make a lot of money, then you can do other things with that money, but it never stops. You know, you're not going to stop at $10 million. If you make 10 million, all you're going to see is 20 million. You make 20 million, all you're going to see is 40 million.
Yeah.
And then it just keeps going. So it doesn't stop. And then people, the process of making money can corrupt a person very easily. That they're willing to do certain things to, you know, it's at a higher level, and you don't need the money, but, you know, people who are multimillionaires will evade taxes, and they don't need to, and we've seen people go to jail for that. You know, the people that need to save on their taxes are the people that don't have much money. You know, the people that make $60,000 a year, they're the ones that need to save on their taxes, because they're going to give up 15,000 or 18, 20,000 of that. Mm-hmm. And that's a huge number, mm-hmm. compared to if you're doing 40% of $20 million, mm-hmm. you know, that you can afford that as long as you have maintained a lifestyle that's within the means. But, you know, 60,000, you lose 20,000, you got 40,000, you know, and then people are, anyway, I mean, we could go on and on and on. I just think that it's too bad that more people don't understand. There's not enough teaching at young ages. I mean, I grew up around manufacturing, so that's totally different than what most people, but we had a shop class. We had wood shop, we had machine shop, we had auto mechanic shop, we had all those in school. You got to put your hands on things and you got to practice stuff. And back then, you know, even before I was in mechanic shop, I was already working on my own motorcycles and cars and snowmobiles, and you know, you're already doing that kind of stuff way before. I was in machine shops when I was 4 years old. You know, so going into the school machine shop, it was all very familiar. Mm-hmm. You know, wood shop, my dad had all the woodworking tools. My grandpa was a woodworker. So going into wood shop, you know, in school, it was, you know, I just messed around the entire time. You know, it was,
yeah,
it was all familiar, and, you know, I already knew how to run a table saw and not cut my fingers off, and I knew skill saw and a chop saw and a jigsaw and a table small hole saw and a band saw and a, you know, yeah, all those types of things, you know, routers and chisels and all this kind of stuff, and, you know, mills and lathes and, you know, buffers and grinders and ratchets and, you know, power tools in mechanics here, you know. Starry's walking by with a claw. But yeah, I think there needs to be more of that practical stuff. That even helps people when they're operating computers. You know, you understand the functionality of a system, and then you can see a system anywhere. You know, that the computer is a system. You know, it's got the hard drive, it's got the processor, it's got the RAM, which is the intermediator between the hard drive and the processor. And you see a schematic and you go, oh, yeah, well, that's just a machine. That's just a process. You know, this has to go there to go there. This provides energy to that. This is cooling that. That's the waste, right? The heat on a computer is the waste, and that's cooling it. And so you're actually using energy to get rid of the waste. And so the concepts all meld and mesh. You know, the exhaust in a car is the waste, you know, and you got to use liquid cooling. And if your liquid cooling goes out, or if you have an air-cooled engine, it's got to have fins to take the heat away, to dissipate the heat, which is the waste. Also, heat and exhaust are waste, you know. And then you see there's input, you know, there's intermediary. The carburetor is the RAM, you know. There's intermediary. The gas tank is the hard drive, you know. The engine, the cylinder is the processor. It's all the same, you know. So if people learned mechanical systems, they would understand way more about even life, you know. You've got your food, you're putting it into your mouth, you're chewing it, you're starting to process it, you know, you swallow it, your mouth starts digestion, your stomach continues digestion, your intestines finish digestion, and you have your waste that comes out the back. And you know, we're an engine, you know, we're an engine with a soul, and we can get into that later. But, you know, because that's what I said earlier, what I came here with, you know. I believe that we choose our parents, we choose our lot in life, and I don't think, as far as like the Buddhists or the Hindus, that we should just allow people to lay on the street because that's their karma. But, you know, I think that karma for me plays a huge role. You know, I've explored past lives, and I know that there's karma. You know, I know what I brought into previous past lives. I had to work through then, and what I took from there, and I came here now, and, you know, and I'm working through. Mm-hmm. So I've worked through quite a bit. Mm-hmm. You know, and that gives you the peace and the feeling that you can have draw the lines and have the boundaries and have morals and ideals, and you don't have to impress them upon other people. You need to impress them upon yourself, and you need to get right with yourself before you can ever be an example for anybody else. Yeah. You know, instead of all this polarization, screaming and hollering at other people to try and get them to believe your beliefs. Yeah. You know, that to me is like evil. You know, that's evil, when people are trying to force you to believe what they believe, and they don't stop. You know, and they talk your brain off and talk your head off and want to scream at you and all that kind of stuff, and then don't want to talk to you. You know, and I get a little bit of that. There's people I don't want to talk to, you know, because they're stuck in a platform, an ideological platform, and they don't understand. You can listen to them, and they don't even understand their own beliefs or ideas. You know, you can tell that they were programmed with them. So.
Hope and change, John. Hope and change.
Yes, I hope for change.
I've got to go with.
Is that a good wrap up?
I think that's a really good wrap up. I'm glad people get to hear more about the you that I see and hear.
Well, and vice versa. People get to hear you, they don't know a lot about you. So here we go. They get to hear that you actually really like listening to me.
Yeah. I think they already know that.
Well, I like listening to you, so one of these days we'll hit a topic that you're kind of passionate about. And
yeah. We could talk about my new vehicle more. Like, that's really fun. And why I went from a V8 to another V8.
And it's gray, and it's as big as an elephant, and
yeah.
We call it the Squatchiota, but I like to joke and call it the Elefante.
Elefante. Yeah. So, great vehicle, though. It's not just a sluggy 8-cylinder. But anyways, okay.
Well,
have a great day.
Hour and a half. All right.
Bye.
Bye.